situation this year in which we had almost double the number of preschool typical peers as we did students who were there because they needed a pre-K program. And our charge in pre-K is that be a program that's focused on supporting the needs of the students with special needs. And the typical peers are there as peer models, and we're very appreciative to parents who choose to participate in that program. It's a very cute little program when you go down and visit. So when we looked at our projected, I've been there for, I've seen turkey hats on dads and all sorts of cute things as I've gone through. They invite us to all their parties. In looking at the projections that we had for the number of students who are in preschool for next year, we made a decision that we were going to have an equal number or an equivalent number of students who are typical peers. And that was done because the intention of that program is not to provide a private preschool for parents or a public preschool for parents of typical peers, but to provide a preschool program for the students with special needs and to have peer models participate in that.
So can you share the numbers for what the students will be next year in terms of the special needs students and how many will be in for full day, how many would be joining mid-year, and how many peer models you'll have? I think the public might better be able to judge if this is.
So when I last looked at the projections, we were at about, I'm going to have to say a range, 20 to 25 students for special ed students.
Next year.
Okay. And then 20 to 25 peer models.
So Nancy, Deborah had a good point. My son got dumped in January. So if we start the school year with 20 sped kids and 20 peers, and then my kid gets dumped in January, we're not going to grab another peer. So at some point, we're going to be lopsided, right?
Correct. But I will tell you that didn't seem to happen this year. We didn't have that many kids who joined us.
We're not on a 1-to-1 ratio though right now. We have a lot more peers than kids, so it wouldn't have mattered, right?
We have,
But we still only added like 1 or 2, as far as I'm aware of, preschool kids. Maybe there's been a couple more.
I have to look at the sheet.
Because you don't get a heads up from birth to 3 that we've got 10 kids coming in.
Didn't exceed 3. I'm not firm on the number.
I'm a little confused about the rationale. So has the number of special ed population in the preschool substantially expanded over the last few years? And so we're bumping up against a ceiling of capacity? I mean, what's happened? I don't understand the
So
logic.
one of the things that we, in order to be sure that we're appropriately building our services for students with intensive needs, again, I had said we're going to look at building and district-wide where we need staff. So by not having an additional almost 20 peer models, it allows us to have an additional case manager to work to not only support, to have enough people in the building to support not only the students with intensive needs, but the students who aren't identified in that. And I mean, I think we talked about, I don't know how many that was, to be sure there's appropriate case managers for those students as well.
For the non-identified kids
So,
who...
no, those are for special ed kids that just, it's all special ed kids, all special ed teachers. So one of the preschool positions will become a K-2 position. There were 4 special ed teachers and 3 special ed classes. There will now be 2 preschool teachers. There'll be 1 person who does the intensive students, 2 preschool classrooms, 1 person who does push-in and supports the students who have the most significant needs for discrete trial. And then there will be the 3rd classroom there. That person will be absorbed into Spalding to be sure that we have appropriate supports for everybody K-2 as well.
And that person who's being absorbed, is it a special ed staff or is it a general ed staff?
Yes.
So we're pulling a special ed person out of the preschool and reducing the number of non-special ed peers.
Correct.
And I don't get how those 2 subjects are related, because I would think if we were gonna, the special ed service provider would be more dependent on the number of special ed kids, not the number of non-special
Well,
ed
you would
peers.
think that, but there's so many typical peers that that's who, when you walk in their classroom, often the majority of the students are.
So what you're saying is that the peer models were actually a distraction for the special education teacher. They weren't able to properly service the special ed kids.
No,
So
I don't know if I would say that, but I would say, I don't think there's I mean, it's certainly a loss to families who are hoping to have their kids come to the preschool program, which
Sure.
is a really lovely program, but whose children don't have special ed needs. But, you know, when you did the numbers, if those peers weren't there, it doesn't take away from the special ed students.
Nancy,
But
I
unless
feel
class-
like it
I'm not
does.
saying this,
So from my
Is it gonna be like a
standpoint, it
lottery or
does.
something? How are you gonna choose which ones come?
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, how do they decide, cause I know when Dora was in preschool, he was in a different type of setting, it was a reverse inclusion class, which means they had more kids with special needs than typical, but the typicals were selected, they did an interview process. I was just sharing with Melissa, I wonder how many of those kids are not gonna be special educators, they're graduating from college this year. But those there were less, but they were like unbelievable, they really were working hard and
So I don't know,
engaging.
Scott, what the plan is.
How do they
in
do
terms
that
of
now, is
peer
it just
models.
random selection, or?
It's a blind lottery.
Yeah.
But they get screened though, don't they get screened?
Yes.
Yeah, they do get
after
screened
the
though
screening,
before.
then there's,
Right, we're not letting our more sped kids be the peer models, they're screened first.
Yeah.
Yes, let's put that on the table. That doesn't mean they're never gonna be identified, they may eventually be identified,
Right.
yeah.
I thought the issue though with preschool, and correct me if I'm wrong, was more so the concern was that if a child has had their 2 years of services in preschool, that they would be quote unquote forced into kindergarten regardless if they are ready,
If they had 2 full years?
if they had 2 full years of preschool.
No, it's not 2 full years based on how I describe it, but Deborah.
Okay,
It's children who are kindergarten eligible, so 4-year-olds who are kindergarten eligible,
Right.
who have late birthdays, parents often wait on the advice of educators, pediatricians, psychologists, who say they're not ready. The district now has a new policy where those children must go on to kindergarten in order to receive their services, or go out to a private
and
preschool
they
and get
forego
no
their
services
services.
for that year until they return for
But yet you're
kindergarten.
forced after birth to 3, you kind of have to come in school to get your services, don't you? So how does that work on the end of 2 years?
So walk me through that though, 'cause
And Nancy, it is 10 of 9.
okay.
So my son was born in 2004, okay? He got dumped into the school district in 2007, but on January 26th. But if he was on January 1st, he would have gone from January 1st, 2007 to that following September, right, of 2007. 1 whole more year, 2008 in September, and in 2008, this district would have made, despite,
So we're
Yes.
talking about
Anything.
students staying 3 years in preschool?
well, my kid was there 2.5
No,
years
if you're-
based
if
on
you're
his
kindergarten
birthday.
eligible.
But,
You should have the
but the
option.
way, if his birthday was January 1st, that September of 2008, he would have been made
But
to go to
I'm
kindergarten.
talking about your example, is that
That's
students
what it
staying 3 years at preschool then?
No, that's not what I'm saying, like, so if you have a December birthday and you start in the preschool, you would go a year and a half, and then the district is saying you're 4, you're eligible by state law.
Go.
You need to September.
Right, and
In
that's what I was just
September.
saying.
You will be 5 before the end of
When
the year.
the state law also gives parents the opportunity to delay kindergarten entry.
I think that's something, I mean, I'm gonna call the state on
Parents
that.
are, parents,
I'm gonna
well,
call.
it's something that's going on in the district, and.
I know,
Yeah, I think it's
but
people in Suffield that are being
I-
told that.
Oh, I understand that, but the piece of the late birthday piece, like, I wanna look into that,
I appreciate that.
okay?
Thank you.
You shouldn't be forced to send your child.
Especially if you're
No,
a
'cause a
special
lot of
needs child.
People that have
yeah.
typical kids don't.
Keep them down.
You're right, if your kid didn't have
Especially
90,
boys,
you would
if it's
choose
a boy.
2 full years, 2 full years.
I went through the same thing with my kid, that my friends were keeping their kids back and they were discouraging me, and he had literally 3 weeks. 3 weeks he would have been, in the next year,
Yeah.
and they said no, but, so it happens, it does happen.
I thought we could take care of this.
I think, yeah.
We want Scott to know it's morning tomorrow.
So our next meeting in May, we have Mark coming, so from the center, to do a presentation,
and he's really gonna, that's all we're gonna be doing at that one, so it's a really good opportunity to learn more about not only next year, but then each consequential year after there, what the plan is, when goes into the college, for the middle school, the high school. Yes, the date has changed, it's the 12th, May 12th, Thursday.
I'm not even feeling it, that is.
Huh? I think it's during the day though, it's during the day, and it's on the 12th, because he had to accommodate his schedule to get here.
Some of the stuff I have.